Hello everyone, can you guys hear me? Can you see my presentation?
Yep.
All right, good.
Yep.
So before I start this presentation, first off, my name is Sophia Henry and I will be doing the chapter on teaching safety skills to children. But before I start, I do want to put out a disclaimer that I will be briefly discussing sexual abuse and abduction. So I know those are very sensitive topics. So I just want to put out that trigger warning. I will not take offense if it might be too much for you and you may need to leave the presentation. So what will you learn? You will learn there's four types of abductions, different types of safety threats, three types of assessments, and accessibility. Then I also added some points from the BACB task list. So the information for this presentation will be coming from the Clinical and Organizational Applications of Applied Behavior Analysis book, chapter 19. So I want you guys to take a moment and think about time in your life or in your life when you were younger, when you may have come in contact with maybe a safety threat. So, safety threats happen throughout our lives. We are exposed to many different types of safety threats. Some of those safety threats could be riding in a car without your seatbelt on, riding a bicycle without a helmet on. Those type of regular occurring safety threats allow children to practice safe behavior. However, there are other safety threats that occur less often and can cause great danger. Those safety threats are abductions, sexual abuse, finding a loaded gun, poison and or medicine or cleaning products. Researchers have evaluated these safety threats and identified the skills children need to respond safely. Studies have shown that perpetrators of abduction typically use lures to entice children to leave with them. There are four types of abduction lures, and those are simple, authority, incentive, and assistant lures. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, over 50,000 children are victims of non family abductions in a 1 year period. Non family abductions may lead to death, exploitation, human trafficking, or sexual abuse. Sexual abuse refers to children being physically molested, inappropriately touching, being filmed, or used in many other ways. Most sexual abuse is perpetrated by a known individual and occurs through a gradual process in which the child is groomed to comply. The next is loaded firearm. This can occur when not in direct supervision of an adult. Proper storage of a firearm will eliminate accidental firearm injury to children. So, keeping your gun in a locked box somewhere away from where the child cannot reach. Poison. The National Capital Poison Center in 2013 reported that a leading source of injury for children under 6 is unintentional poison, and that rates of non fatal poisoning are steadily increasing. So, as we can see, it's clear safety threats may arise from a variety of situations, both social and non social. We are going to discuss the research on teaching safety skills to children. Researchers have focused on teaching age appropriate, observable, measurable skills in response to the various safety threats. According to Mittlenberg and Harrington, the essential safety skills applicable to any of the safety threats described are to recognize, avoid, escape, and report when encountering a safety threat. I want to make this important note that the goal of safety skills research is not to make the children afraid of people or their environment. Rather, the goal is to teach children to recognize dangerous situations and to behave accordingly. Research has shown that children do not experience any type of fear and any negative side effects when participating in research on teaching safety skills. So now we're going to go into the different types of assessments. There are three assessments. There's verbal report, role play, and C2. In verbal report, the researcher describes a scenario involving a safety threat and asks the child to say how he or she would behave in that situation. The example the book gives is the researcher may ask the child to pretend you're playing on the playground and a man walked up to you and asked you to come with him and help him find his lost puppy. What would you do? The child would then give the answer. The experimenter does not give any praise or feedback for the child's answer. The child is simply think. We have a few assessments. The first is the personal safety questionnaire, which requires the child to answer by saying yes, no, or I'm not sure. The what if situation test, which assesses answers to a series of questions related to inappropriate sexual requests made by an adult. And a what do I know about touching scale, which is very similar to the PSQ. It uses yes, no, or I don't know responses to questions about sexual abuse. Because of ethical concerns associated with presenting sexual abuse alerts to children, verbal report assessments are typically used in the sexual abuse prevention literature. Further research on teaching sexual abuse prevention skills should be developed, better assessment strategies that do not rely on verbal reports. Carol Roman and Mittlenberg used the verbal report assessment as one measure of the effectiveness of a teach directed group training of abduction prevention skills with children ages 4 through 5. The children verbal report of what they would do in response to abduction scenario was scored on a 0 to 4 scale. 0 went with the abductor, 1 stayed near the abductor but did not refuse, 2 stayed near the abductor but said no to the request, 3 ran away, 4 ran away and then reported the incident to the parent. Verbal report has also been used to assess firearm safety skills. Next is role playing, and role playing is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's another type of assessment used in safety skills literature. Researchers using role play assessment evaluate safety skills by presenting children with a scenario and asking them to demonstrate or act out what they would do. The example the book gives is, let's pretend we are in the kitchen and you see a gun on the table. The researcher places a gun on the table. Let's also pretend I'm your father and I'm in the other room. I want you to show me exactly what you would do if you found this gun on your kitchen table. So the researcher walks across the room to pretend to be the dad. The researcher then records the child's behavior but does not give praise or corrective feedback. The child is simply think. The Eddie Eagle Gun Safe program and behavior skills training used with 6 and 7-year-old children, the children's response on role playing was evaluated on a 4-point scale. This one is 0, the child touched the gun. 1, the child did not touch the gun but did not get away from the gun. 2, the child did not touch the gun and got away from the gun but did not report the incident to an adult. A 3, the child did not touch the gun but did leave the area and tell an adult. The next assessment is the C2 assessment. In situ means in situation. So this tests the child's response to safety threats in the natural environment, because research suggests a disparity between children's behavior during role play assessment when they know they are being watched and what they're likely to do in the presence of a safety threat when alone. In situ assessments are conducted without the child's knowledge. The necessary deception ensures that the child is responding with respect to the safety threat SD and not with respect to the setting or presence of an adult, the researcher, or a parent. Beck and Mettlenberg used the Stranger Safety Abduction Prevention Program to evaluate 2 types of abduction situations. The situation was a knock on the door at home and approached by a stranger in a public place. The first was knock on the door, and then the second was approached by a stranger in a public place. They do go into more detail about these situations on page 483 if you guys would like to go and read more into those. Okay, so now we know how to teach these safety skills. We have research on safety skills. So now we have the 2 main approaches, and those are informational and active learning. So informational, this approach is what they call the passive learning approach, is when the teacher provides information about safety threats and describes or models the correct response. Information approach has been evaluated for teaching a number of safety skills to children, including gun safety, abduction prevention, and sexual abuse prevention. The information approach includes a variety of media to deliver this type of information. So anything from videos, books, in-person learning. Studies using C2 assessments to evaluate information approaches have found that in general, information approaches are not effective for teaching safety skills. Next, we have active learning. This approach incorporates rehearsal of the safety skills being trained. The advantage of active learning approach is that the children execute the safety skills in the presence of an SD so the trainer can reinforce correct responses and provide further instruction for incorrect or partially correct responses. This way, the trainer can ensure that the acquisition of the safety skills. There are two active learning approaches, and those are IST and BST. BST is the behavior skills training. This is when the instructor describes the safety threat and appropriate safety skills. They also model, rehearse, and receive feedback. In this model, the children do receive praise for corrective responses. The in situ training, IST, consists of training sessions in an actual context where the safety skills should be performed. When a safety threat is simulated in IST and the participant does not give their correct response, then BST is immediately started. Studies have shown that IST is effective when it follows the use of BST. Several researchers have evaluated IST in combination with BST to teach safety skills. So next we're going to talk about increasing accessibility. Active learning approach has been found to be an effective way for teaching safety skills. Because of this, there has been emphasis on placing on increasing the accessibility of these approaches. This is very important because in most successful studies trained investigators conducted BST and IST with individual children. Well, this takes a lot of time and professional resources, and there was research done that it takes around 20 hours for the average elementary school to teach one safety skill. So what can we do about that? So they've come up with a couple of trainings. The first one is group training. One approach for reducing the cost of resources required is to teach children safety skills is to conduct group training rather than individual. It is very important when doing group training that all children are paying attention to the instructions and modeling. All children get an opportunity to rehearse the skills with feedback and to correct, and all children observe other children's rehearsals and the feedback they receive. Next is parent implemented training. Another approach to making training more accessible is the use of the parents and the caregivers to teach their children safety skills. Gross in 2007 investigated the effectiveness of a program in which parents taught their own children gun safety. In this study, the parents read a training manual and watched training videos to learn how to conduct BST and IST sessions. The parents then implemented BST and IST with no further training. Results showed that the parent implemented training was effective for 3 out of 4 children who participated. Next is peer implemented training. In peer implemented training, it uses the use of peer tutoring. So Jostad in 2008 trained 6 and 7-year-old children to teach gun safety to 4 and 5-year-olds. The 6 and 7-year-old trainers learned how to conduct IST and BST with younger children. Peer implemented training can be effective and practical for teaching safety skills to children. The next one is simulated training. Simulated training incorporates computer simulation into training. Participants can engage in target behavior using virtual reality. Some researchers have already demonstrated the effectiveness of VR in teaching skills like safe street crossing. So now we have some takeaways. First is active learning approach is most successful way to teach children safety skills. BST is effective in many, but not all cases. IST is effective following the failure of informational approaches. Combination of BST and IST has been shown to be the most effective. Promising approaches are group implemented, parent and peer implemented programs, and computer assisted programs using virtual reality. All right. That is the reference to the book. And for those who were unable to attend, I will post the Google Doc for the quiz link and get that done and submit it back to me. And that is it. If there are any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Good job, Sophia.
Thank you.